touching base on Spartan Forge, right? So that's the place up in North Carolina that does the forging. So the thought behind that was the same kind of thought with anodizing, right, Ryan, right? You're making the raw material, so you're controlling your own destiny, right? Yeah. You know, and so we're making our own forgings, we're machining it, we're coating it, and we're assembling it.
And when we want to crank it up, we can increase our production, and when we need to turn it down, we can decrease our production. Yep. Same thing with the anodizing line. You know, like, I don't want to say the names of the companies, but they were terrible to work with, and you wouldn't have anything when you needed it, and then when it slowed down and they could get to you, they see your
and we have so much capacity on it now. There's other products we bring in the white and anodize ourselves to be able to buy it cheaper from them and capitalize on our.
Yeah, kind of like what Ed's saying. So we'll have a supplier that, because we don't make everything, you know, we make a good portion of it, but there's contractors that make parts for us, and they would get stuff stuck at these anodizing companies. And so they would call and say, hey, I'm stuck. I can't, you know, send you this. And say, okay, just send it to us. We'll anodize it. And it gave us the ability to control the supply line, not just internally, but with external suppliers.
We're here at Spartan Forge, a JJE company. This is where we take raw aluminum bar stock and turn it into a raw forging to be machined into an AR-15 upper receiver. So come with us and I'll give you a behind-the-scenes tour of what's going on here. So here at Spartan Forge, our first step of our process is to take a 12-foot round bar stock and cut it down to size to be then sent over to our forging press to be turned into a raw AR-15 forging. After we cut down the bar stocks, we then bring them over to our forging room. And a part of that process is heating up the aluminum bar stock to get it to the right temperature before it goes into the forge. This oven has a conveyor system that will then heat that bar stock up for 45 minutes. After the parts go through the oven, they come out at 750 degrees, which then are ready to be placed on top of the die and ready to be forged into a raw upper. After that process is done, it then goes into a quench bath. This quench bath is critical to making sure that the part is re-hardened to what is needed to get onto the final process of cutting off the flashing. Once the quenching process is done, it then comes over to our heat treat oven. Here, these uppers will sit in the heat treat oven for 24 hours to finish the aging process. Once that's done, it gets on a truck and driven down to Columbia, South Carolina to Ferrous Tool to be machined into a completed upper to then be sent to Palmetto State Armory to be used to finish your gun. Thanks for coming along on this tour of Spartan Forge. Now let's head on over to another JJE company to see what they're doing over there.
Here we are, we're at Ferrous Engineering and Tool. It's a JJE company. This is where our engineering and our Aberdeen project is based, but it's also where we make a lot of the components that go into our PSA product. We make uppers here, we make jackal components here, we make AK components here. So come on with us and we're gonna go give you a quick tour behind the scenes of what's actually being made on the CNC machines today. So the first thing I want to show you all is where all the magic happens here. So this is our engineering facility. This is our design engineers, our CAD software guys, they all hang out in here. This room right here is the rifle division that's trying to bring you freedom every single day. So in here is where we do our pistol engineering and CAD design work. This is where they do all of our handguns, our X57s, everything that is going to be considered a handgun is going to be done in this room right here. Let's go out to the floor and show you what's going on our CNC machines. We're on the machine floor and I want to show y'all how we take a raw forging that is made by Spartan Forge, another JJE company, and turn it into a usable AR-15 upper receiver. So come on and I'll show you some of the cells that we have making these parts. So right behind me is one of our many cells that we have in this building that makes upper receivers for Palmetto State Armory. Here, they work in tandem with each other. One machine does one op, the second machine does another op. After they're done here, they come over to Palmetto State Armory to get anodized and built into complete AR-15s. The next cell of CNC machines that we have here, this is where we make our jackal sled and our jackal rear trunnion. Here, they're loading all day long to make your jackal components that we're using at Palmetto State Armory every day. They will take a raw piece of aluminum and turn it into a jackal rear trunnion. So the next cell I wanted to show you is where we take a raw piece of steel and turn it into a workable jackal trunnion. Every one of these CNC machines that you see behind me provides a different op that goes into the jackal trunnion, and then it's broached after, and then when we're done with it, it goes to black oxide to then be sent over to Palmetto State Armory to be used to build your jackal. So now that you've seen how our jackal trunnions are made, I want to show you how we turn a jackal raw upper into a finished jackal upper. Right here is where they take a raw extrusion and machine it into a finished jackal upper. We also use all of the tooling made on these machines is made in-house, so that way we can control it every single time. Once these come off the machine, they are then sent over to Palmetto State Armory to build your jackal. The next cell is our AK cell. This is where we're taking our raw castings and turning them into finished gas blocks. This gas block right here is your 90-degree gas block that goes on your AK-74s and your AK-100 series rifles. We also are all making here is our crank parts. That's right, here crank, here's the crank parts. We have our handguard retainer as well as our rear sight base for your crank that we're selling today. These parts then get deburred and sent over to Palmetto State Armory to be made into your finalized product. So over here is our STG-44 cell. We have our 100-ton press brake, which actually forms the metal for you and makes it into the receiver. And then we have our welding system right here that will actually weld the rails and weld the components together. This is right here where the STG-44 is being prototyped and finalized to get into production for Palmetto State Armory. So we here at JJE are committed to innovation, and that's why we invest in automation. What we're doing here is this is an automatic robo drill setup that will automatically run parts 24/7 without an operator pushing buttons. This way we can provide freedom to you at an affordable cost by being able to run parts 24/7. Here we are at DC Machine, a JJE company. This is where we make all of our AR-15 barrels. We make some AR small parts here. We make all of our AR-15 lower receivers. We make some jackal components here. So come with me and I'll show you what's going on the machines behind the scenes here. We're at our first process of the way we make our barrels here at DC Machine. We take a raw blank and we start with a gun drilling operation. So what we do in this process is we take our raw blanks and we're loading them up in our machine. In this machine, we can roll 3 blanks at a time that are gonna drill a perfect gun drill slot down the middle of the barrel every single time. So here we are, we're in our quality lab. Every single blank that gets gun drilled will come in here prior to rifling. In this process, they will air gauge the bore diameter to make sure that it fits into our spec before it goes to rifling. After our gun drilling is done and our quality checks are done, it then comes over to our rifling setup. On this setup here, we have 4 different rifling machines that are all interchangeable. That way we can be flexible and make any barrel configuration we need when we need to. We also make about 400 of these a day through the rifling setup, and then they head over to our quality department to be checked before it goes to shaft and profile. After rifling, we also do an air gauge test on these. Just similar to what we did on our gun drill test, we do it again on rifling before it goes into shafting and profiling. So now we're here in our shaft and profile setup where we take a final rifled and gun drilled barrel blank, and now we turn it into a completely machined and profiled barrel that is ready to go to quality to be checked and measured before it heads over to our next step where we're machining the back end of the barrel and finishing it off the profile to put the barrel extension on. All of the data that we get from the live scan here is fed out to our cells out on the floor. We have TVs out there next to our cells that are alerting the operators if there is a non-conforming part or if something is out of spec for them to make the adjustment in real time, so that way we're tracking and we're making sure we're making 100% quality part every single time. So a big part of what we try to do here at JJE is controlling our own destiny, and some of that is making even small parts like barrel extensions to go on our barrels. Here we take a raw piece of metal and turn it from a raw piece into a finished black oxided part that goes onto your barrel so we can control our own destiny 100% of the time. So just like everything else that we're doing here, we always make sure that we do a quality check before we go to the next process. Right now behind me, the CMM machine is doing a quality check on our barrel extensions that we are then going to be putting onto our final profiled barrels. So here we are, we're in our chamber cell where we just showed you how we went and profiled a barrel, and now we went and we added a chamber and threaded it to add the barrel extension on it. So let's go show you how we put our barrel extension on. So right here, we're putting on our AR-15 barrel extensions. This machine right here is automated, so it's gonna put 150 foot-pounds on the barrel extension every single time. It's also digitally monitored, so that way if there's under torque or over torque, it throws up a red flag immediately, so that way we're making a perfect part 100% of the time.
So once our barrel extensions are on in their time, it then comes over to our gas port machines. This is where we drill all of our gas ports, and we also dimple our barrels here, so that way they're perfectly concentric with each other every single time. So also here at DC Machine, we make our Jackal bolt carriers. We take a raw block of steel and we turn it into a Jackal bolt carrier, because this is how we can increase our flexibility on our products that we provide to you, the end consumer. So we here at DC Machine also make other parts for our firearms here at Palmetto State Armory, other than just barrels. We're taking a raw bar stock and we're turning it from this and turning it into a mag catch for an AR-15. So here at DC Machine, not only do we make barrels, barrel extensions, Jackal parts, and AR parts, we also make AR-15 lower receivers here for Palmetto State Armory. And a part of that process is we take a raw forging and turn it into a finished product. All of the CNC machines and the cells that you see here will all start out with a raw forging. We get these by the pallet. We then take a raw forging and it goes into the cell. The cells are 4 CNC machines operating. Each CNC machine will do a different part of the process as it moves along in its lifespan. Once the lifespan is done, it then turns into a finished product that is ready to be CNC machine engraved for serial numbers, as well as going to our broaching setup, and it looks just like this. After our lower receivers come through the first operation of CNC machines, prior to broaching, they will then come into our quality lab. In here, we have 4 CMMs that are running around the clock, going through and checking all of our components before they get broached. After broach, they then come back in here where we do another CMM check to make sure that those parts meet the same standard that we're sending out 100% of the time. So after our CMM process, we bring it over to our broaching machines. We have 3 different broaching machine operations here. The big one behind me will do 3 lowers at one time. And then after this step, they then go over to get engraved for the final operation before heading up to Palmetto State Armory to get anodized and then assembled and sent to you. Now that we got done with our tour here of DC Machine, a JJE company, and we showed you how we make our AR-15 barrels, some AR parts, and some Jackal parts, let's head on over to another JJE company to show you what we're making over there. We're here at Special Tool Solutions, a JJE company. Here down in Jacksonville, Florida, we're making all kinds of components for Palmetto State Armory. We're making AK components, we're making AR-10 lowers, AR-10 uppers, Jackal parts, KS-47 parts, PX-9 parts, ARV parts. We're making non-firearm parts here. So come on with me and I'll give you a tour behind the scenes of what that looks like. Here at Special Tool Solutions, one of the many products we make for Palmetto State Armory is AR-15 style handguard. As you can see here, there's multiple different extrusions on the shelf that are ready to go to be made into the AR-15 handguard. The first step of this operation is getting them off the shelf and bringing them over to our cutter. This cutter here will cut down the different sizes that we need for what work order we're working on for the length of the rail that is being made. After our extrusions are cut down to the right length, they then come over to our mill turning cell. In our mill turning cell, they take a raw extrusion and then they turn it into a part that is ready to go to the next step. In this step, they are going through and they're doing a counterbore on the front, a counterbore on the back. They're also machining in the anti-rotation tabs, as well as the tab system for where the barrel nut goes for when it gets installed onto the handguard for the lockup system. So on our AR-10 handguards, similar to our AR-15s, we go through and we do the first operation. Now, the way that we do the AR-10s is slightly different than we do our AR-15s, and we use the machine behind me. This whole process is meant to increase efficiency and operator time to make sure that we're making a part as quickly as we can, but efficiently as we can. So in this operation, we're taking an AR-10 extrusion and we're going through and we're doing the first stop. Similar to AR-15, it's the first bore right here, the back bore, the anti-rotation tabs, as well as the clamping system, as well as the screw system. On these CNC machines here, we also make some variety of parts for Palmetto State Armory, some of which are the M4 buffer tube adapters that go on the back of AK-47s, as well as some of the other small parts that go on the AK, like the AKV magwell, the AKV paddles. A lot of the small-time accessories that we use on a daily basis are also pumped out on these very machines. This machine right here does our 308 lowers. This machine right here does our KS-47 lowers. This machine right here makes muzzle brakes for Palmetto State Armory. That machine right there makes ARV lowers. This machine makes AKV mag catches. This machine makes our PX9 lowers. These machines right here are making our AR10 uppers. These machines right here are making our PA15 uppers. This machine right here is making our AKV mag catches. This machine right here is making our KS47 uppers. This machine right here is making more AR10 lowers. All of this stuff here in this room is meant to keep making you freedom that we do here every day at Palmetto State Armory. Here in this room is where we store all of our forgings and our raw materials. We strategically place this room right on the backside of our CNC machine, so that way when we need more, they're right here. But everything you see here is being used on a daily basis to be machined into a raw part or a finished part to then be sent up to Palmetto State Armory to be assembled and shipped out to you. At this facility here, we also make non-firearm related products, specifically the Norton 850 motor head, as well as electric starters, among other parts. These machines behind me here are dedicated to non-firearm parts. In this cell, we turn a raw part into a finished Class 11 gear. In our mill turning section here, we make Jackal gas block adjustment knobs. On this mill turn machine, we turn this into our adjustable gas blocks that go on a lot of our 308s and our suppressor-ready guns. We also make some parts for the dagger here. On this mill turn here, we're making our slide inserts that go on every dagger that we sell. We also find a lot of solutions to some of the problems that we come across on a daily basis. Here we make custom parts that we come up with to work with all of our components that we're assembling at Palmetto State Armory. On this mill turn right here, we're making our flash cans that we use on a lot of shorty uppers here at Palmetto State Armory. We're here at one of our quality labs at this facility. Behind me is a CMM machine, as well as optical comparators and other various measurement tools that we use to check all the components that are coming off of our machines before being sent on to Palmetto State Armory. So behind me here is our hand deburring section. All of the parts we make here at Special Tool Solutions go through a hand deburr and a QC check before it makes it into our vibratory process. Right here is where we catch and we're able to reject anything that is non-conforming. After this check is done and it's good, it goes over to our vibratory room where the parts are then tumbled in our vibratory machines before getting boxed up and sent to Palmetto State Armory. That's a wrap here on our tour of Special Tool Solutions, a JJE company. So in 2021, during the COVID gun rush, one of the constraints that we saw at Palmetto State Armory was being able to get our parts anodized. We could make as many parts as we wanted to, but we couldn't get them black to be able to assemble them. So one of the biggest things that we did is we put in an anodizing line to be able to control our own destiny. So here we are today at our Palmetto State Armory anodizing line. Here at our anodizing line, we will anodize our buffer tubes, our uppers, our lowers, and our handguards. The first part of that process is vibing it. This helps get the deburring done and get it ready for sandblast before we put it on our racks for anodizing. So after the parts are deburred, they then come over to our automatic sandblasting machines. Here, they will load them up on those automatic machines, and then they will get media blasted and get ready to go to get racked up for our anodizing line. So the next step after our sandblasting is that they then rack and unrack our parts that are coming off our anodizing line. So what you can see here is our team is now loading up the next rack, ready to go to our anodizing tanks. Once we get our parts on a rack, we then program it on our robot system to know what parts are in each rack. Depending on the part, depends on what tank it goes in and how long it goes into each tank. So what we're doing here now is that all these racks are different with what component and all is on them. So like I said in the beginning, we do uppers, lowers, handguards, and buffer tubes all inside of our own system. This allows us to control our own destiny and prioritize what is needed on the shop floor. We're not sending parts out waiting for them to come back, and we don't need them. We are here live making the parts, bringing them over to the assembly facility where our anodizing line is to be able to take them right to the floor for assembly. This allows us to control our own color scheme, so that way all of our parts are matching 100% of the time, every time. So once the parts come off the anodizing line, they will then come down on a rack. After this rack system is done and down, it will then go to our post-anodizing QC, which they will then inspect to make sure that the color is where we want it and there's no burns or blemishes on the part before it goes into production.
Join us next week for episode 3.2, where we continue to take a look at the manufacturing capabilities of JJE and Palmetto State Armory.
Today we're at Prudent American, a JJE company. We're here at ToolCraft Inc. Here we are at Manufacturing Partners Inc.